I am so excited for being here. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity and inviting me. It is an important month. And when I think of Black history, I really think it is American history. And as there's so many things that I think we have made progress on, and yet there's still so much more that we have to do. And so when Abby emailed me and asked me if I would be willing to come and speak to the class really about my experiences, particularly as a leader, and share with you all, I jumped at the opportunity. We had to figure out scheduling, but I am just so happy to be here. So thank you so much. I think one of the things that I thought about of how to just help you all not only understand my perspective and my experiences as a leader here, but really to get to know more of who I am as a person, I think is really important, because I think you'll find that there's some commonalities or some things that we might think similarly about. And so I'm going to really just kind of tell a story so that you guys get an opportunity to get to know me. And hopefully by the end, you'll see the influences from my life and my experience and how they've played a role in who I am as a leader here in South San Francisco and as a leader in other positions that I've had. So we'll start with this. It's an African proverb, and I wanted to start with this because I believe that it really captures a big part of who I am as a leader. I am because we are. And I love this because it instills in me that there have been a number of people that have come before me that have paved the pathway for me to be in this seat. As the CEO, the superintendent of a school district, I am very well aware that when my ancestors were thinking about their hopes and dreams, that this is a reality that many could not actualize and things that they really wanted to do in their lives. And so as I think about that, and what people have sacrificed in order for me to be here, I remain humbled and really just deeply grateful at the opportunity that I have been afforded. And I don't take it lightly. And I really want to lead in a way that is really a beacon of hope and light for others, kids of color, people of color, women, girls that look and say, you know what, I can do that also. And it doesn't matter your circumstances, your background, that you can accomplish, and that we don't have to do it alone, that we can collectively come together and figure out how do we continue to move forward and still accomplish things as a unit. And so I thought I would start with that. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. This is my 6th year as a superintendent here. And I'm looking over here, if you guys can see, because you guys are on my screen over here. So if it looks like I'm looking sideways, that's why. And so I'm going into my 21st year in education. I started my career in Stockton Unified. I was a middle school teacher and then later moved into the administrative ranks. And I have to tell you, I recognize that I am completely fortunate and blessed at the educational leadership positions that I've held. I am definitely a woman of faith. It guides everything that I do. It really grounds me in my purpose and what I'm striving to do and how I treat people, how I interact, how I think about the impact on other people. And of course, I love you see a picture of my husband and I, and then that's my little daughter in the bottom. That's Rachel. She also goes to school here. And I have to tell you, this is a very big job for someone with little kids. And I am thankful because I have a tremendously wonderful and supportive family that is okay with the late nights and all of the meetings and all the events that I'm typically going to, not in the world of COVID. And then I included this picture, and it's a few years back of Parkway, one of my visits, and how the teacher was interacting with students. So that really is representing my love of my position, the profession, the world of education. I really feel like I was called into this position to lead and to serve others. And this wonderful community has been so supportive and embracing of me. And so when things get tough, because it's inevitable, things are going to be hard. You're going to have some rough patches. Things aren't always going to go the way that you anticipate or the way that you want. For me, it's about really leaning into my faith, remembering why I'm here, remembering who I'm here to serve. really leaning on my family, my close friends. And also they're understanding that we're in this work because we really want to make an impact for all of you, for the students. And so that has really helped. So I'm going to share a little bit about my journey and part of my story that'll help you really, hopefully, see how I lead as a superintendent. So I grew up, I was this young African-American girl. I was being raised by a single mom, and I really didn't have any deep or true understanding of the statistics that forecasted my future. So my mom was a single mom, like I said, and it certainly wasn't by choice. My father was gunned down just a few months before I was born. And so she was pregnant with me when he was killed. But she is the epitome of strength. And so despite that, she really believed in the importance and the value of an education. She'd always tell my brother and me, just do your best. You work hard, you give 100% of yourself. And if your best produces average grades in school, or if you're an average athlete, then that's okay, because at least I know that you're working really hard. And so that really is something that I've carried with me in everything. Work really hard, give 100% of myself, do my very best, and then I can rest easy at night. And so in school, I wasn't ever striving to be a straight A student till about 5th grade. My best friend, I learned that she was a straight A student. And, you know, A's, B's, the occasional C's, that was acceptable. And my mom said, work hard. I thought, yeah, I'm working hard. And when I learned that she had straight A's, of course, the competitive spirit in me was awakened, and I am competitive by nature. And so that then became my unwavering focus. If she can get straight A's, I can get straight A's. I'm going to really work hard. And so I was actually successful throughout the rest of my school pursuits. And one of the things I attribute that to is my mom was really good about exposing my brother and me to a variety of opportunities. So I was exposed to athletics, different educational aspects and opportunities, as well as artistically. And she would also advocate for me because she was a teacher. So she knew what things she should be asking for. And I didn't understand it at the time. I knew that there was something I needed to identify with that was a strength, and then I needed to really try to cultivate that and help me. And so I put in here some pictures. I was a 3-sport athlete in high school, and I played soccer and softball competitively and traveled around the country. And so I went to college actually on a softball scholarship because playing competitive soccer, I tore my ACL and my meniscus. My 9th grade year was my right knee. My senior year was my left knee. So I lost all my soccer scholarships and decided, okay, if I can still play sports competitively, then I'll try for a softball scholarship. And I'm thankful that I got that. And so because of that, and having to really work together, and you win together, you lose together, you learn about each other, it has really helped me in how I try to bring people together and work as a team. Aside from my family, I also had coaches. And, you know, I was I played the piano, I was in the band in high school, played the saxophone, so I was very active. But I recognized that there were people that saw something in me that I didn't always see in myself. And they were committed to developing or strengthening the assets that they saw. So I'm very fortunate. But, you know, nothing is perfect. And there were some harsh realities that I experienced that hit me when I got to college. I attended a wonderful university comprised of the most amazing faculty, staff, and student body. But still, I had some challenges that I eventually survived, and I think thrived ultimately, but they were not easy. So I'll share a little bit more about that. I had a professor who I took a test, and he was really doubtful about my ability to succeed in his class. So I had taken a Greek mythology exam and I got a B. And I had studied diligently on this exam, and I felt 100% confident that I was going to earn an A, and I didn't. So I headed to his office. armed with a classmate's exam. And at that time, remember, I'm in college, I had my righteous indignation to go with me because I wanted to challenge the professor on the grade, or at least just try to understand and discover the rationale for the disparagement between my grade and my classmate's grade, because she gave me her test and I was much more detailed and thorough in my responses than hers, and she had earned an A+. So she allowed me to take her paper, and I sat with the professor. I communicated my concern for my grade, and I also explained how conscientious I had been to study for this exam. And I just wanted to understand, what are the expectations? If you articulate the expectations to me, I will do my best to rise to the occasion. Without hesitation, this professor told me I could transfer out of his class because there was no way I would get anything higher than a C. Now, I couldn't comprehend, I couldn't understand how the professor would be able to foreshadow my grade when the quarter had just begun. And so it became painfully clear to me that in this instructor's eyes, the color of my skin was problematic. He was not only telling me I wasn't smart enough, but he was telling me I wasn't good enough or worthy enough to earn anything higher than a C in his class. And he also, without overtly telling me, basically said that he didn't think I had the abilities to do well in his class. And that was the most blatant experience that I have ever had, or I had ever had in the academic arena, where I had to confront a professor's biases about what I could or couldn't do. And so I left his office completely frustrated and in despair. But then I started strategizing. What could I do to advocate for myself? And again, I attribute that to one of the gifts my mom gave me, was that of a voice. She told my brother and me to always give 100% of ourselves, like I shared earlier, to voice our concerns. We had to do it very respectfully, inappropriately, of course, but she also said, never let anyone define what you can or cannot do. And she was very honest with me from an early age that I might come into challenges in life simply because of who I am and what I look like. I couldn't quite get it when I was younger. But that changed as I got older and experienced different things. But what she said was, despite that, you don't hold on to that as a crutch, and you certainly don't walk around with a chip on your shoulder. You see the positive in other people until they give you a reason not to. And so these were lessons that I used to help me figure out I need to go and I need to talk to the dean and share the experience and the concern that I had about this particular professor. So in the end, I refused to transfer out of his class. I worked exceptionally hard, probably harder than any other class that quarter. And unfortunately, oftentimes realistically though, I did not get an A. I got a B+ out of his class, but I became really acquainted with discrimination in the educational arena. And that is just one experience of many that I went through. But what it did was it taught me valuable lessons. And it gave me invaluable tools that I would need to use later in life. And I think that has really helped me carve out a niche which shapes the lens through which I function as a superintendent here. So having different experiences, circumstances, interactions. I told you I played sports, and I had umpires. I was a pitcher that would refuse to call strikes and then made some comments out loud in front of parents and our team about me pitching. Being this young Black girl, can't hit a strike zone no matter what, she'll never get a strike as long as I'm umpiring. Those types of things have all played a role in the impact now of how I lead and how I want to engage and interact and really uplift other people. And so to be really transparent, I not only experienced it from, and it wasn't pervasive, they were little bits and pieces in my life where I thought, is this what it's all about? You know, because my mom had taught me early on, but I experienced a lot of hurdles growing up because I wasn't the typical African-American child as I was told. I didn't know what that meant growing up. I just knew what my mom had taught me and how to behave and how to speak and how to work hard. But I was really this confident, gregarious child, but I was ridiculed and bullied. A lot of my classmates, and this was more in middle school and high school, really didn't like the fact that I was in honors classes or advanced placement classes. I was labeled a sellout, an Oreo, white chocolate, other creative epithets because they thought I wasn't Black enough, whatever that means, or I was too smart, as though African-American children shouldn't be able to exemplify intelligence. And so for some, you dress so properly, you speak like you're white. I mean, there were these microaggressions that I was experiencing, and from some adults, that it hurt my feelings. I couldn't name it at the time, but I had people that I knew I could go to and share, this is what happened, am I understanding this correctly? And so they were the ones who told me, it just doesn't matter. You're always going to be judged. People are going to put labels on you. Some are going to not, some may be jealous. And so they think by trying to tear you down, it makes them feel better, et cetera, et cetera. You stay true to who you are and stay focused on who you want to be. And so that really helped me. And so I did not get into education purposefully. In fact, when I went through high school and I got ready for college, I was an English major, but I studied pre-med. I really wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. And my dream was to perform knee surgeries on athletes in the NBA and the NFL. That's what I thought I was going to do. After undergrad, I moved back home and I was studying for the medical exam. And my mom said, you know, you can't just stay home and study all the time. You need to get a job. And I laughed because I said, well, this is my job. Studying is my job. And she laughed back at me and said, you know, you do have an opportunity to give back to the community. And remember, she's an educator. So she recommended I become a substitute teacher. And she said, that way you can give back and you also can design your schedule and build in time to continue to study. So I thought, okay, yeah, I like kids. I can go do that. So soon after I went to a school, they hired me on as a substitute, just day to day. And the principal, after about a week's time, he came and visited me often, then offered me a contract and a temporary contract for the rest of that year. And I wasn't 100% sure that I wanted to do that because remember, I had my plan. I was going to be studying, I'm going to go and I'm going to be an orthopedic surgeon and work in the NBA. That's what I thought I was going to do. But I went ahead and I agreed. And of course, I was terribly nervous at first because I had all these kids that were depending on me and I was at a middle school. So I spent the first part of my teaching position really just talking to students and just trying to understand, what are your hopes? What are your dreams? What do you aspire to do? And just build a relationship, establish a rapport with them. And I told the principal, I'm not sure, you know, I had no training. I was just out of college, and the principal said, you know, I really think you're a natural. You might want to consider changing your plan. And I thought, no, I don't think so. But I want to tell you a story about one of my students. And these are some of my students my first year of teaching. And you'll see that's me right here in the middle in the purple sweater. So I'm going to tell you a story about Julian. Julian was a known middle school gang member. He publicly represented his colors. He had gotten in trouble previously for gang affiliation. When I took over, it was October. I was the 14th teacher. Substitute teacher. And so I was the 14th one that actually said I'd be willing to stay on for the remainder of the year. The students filled me in on what others had said about them, what they believed about them, and it just wasn't positive, which was heartbreaking for me. So knowing this, I talked to my mom because she, you know, was an educator, and I said, you know, I have no training. Can you tell me, is there any advice? And she said, yes, be firm, be fair, be consistent. She said, firm, fair, consistent. I thought, okay, I can do that. And so I went into the class thinking I'm going to be firm, fair, and consistent. And Julian just did not like the new structure. We butted heads all the time. I thought he had a major attitude problem. He wanted to hang out in the class and socialize and talk about what he did on the weekend. And he liked it that way. And then when I got there, I wanted him to sit down and focus and pay attention. And one day he was being disrespectful. And again, I asked him, stop talking, pay attention. And at that time, open your listening ears. He didn't like that I'd called him out in front of the class. He jumps out of his seat. He shoves his desk forward And he says, and he said in a quiet whisper, but loud enough for me to hear, "Man, I wish I had a gun." I was shocked. I couldn't believe that this 13-year-old had said that. And all because I had asked him to sit down and focus. And so, of course, I sent him out of the class. I'm a new teacher. I didn't understand, like, what should I have done to de-escalate and connect at that time. And I sent him on a referral. I made a point during lunchtime to follow up with the assistant principal. And I marched into the office and demanded that Julian be suspended out of my class for as long as the law would allow. And the assistant principal calmly sat me down and talked to me about what happened. And I shared how frustrated I was with Julian. He's so smart, but he was so disrespectful. He didn't want to listen. He always wanted the last word. And as I was sharing with the assistant principal, I kept saying, he was talking about inflicting bodily harm on me. And so the assistant principal shared more with me about Julian. His father had just recently been to prison. He was really stepping up to be the man in the house. He'd witnessed some horrific fights between his mom and his dad. And I learned that his dad had some issues with female authority figures. And so slowly but surely, the words of my students, how they described how others treated and felt about them, really resonated with me in hearing more of Julian's story. Julian was no different. He felt unwanted, unintelligent, and he was really discouraged by the circumstances of his life. And so the assistant principal asked me again, "Do you want him to be suspended?" And in that moment, I knew that that wouldn't help Julian. Sitting at home isn't going to build him up. He's going to miss out on learning. It's not going to help increase his confidence. And it certainly wasn't going to help him be successful academically. So I told the assistant principal, send him back to class the next day. And so Julian is just one student of many who have had similar stories. And what I realized is it's my job, and it was my job, to teach and make sure not only that they were learning the standards, but in reality, my students taught me how important it was to love them and to lift them up and to believe in them. And by doing that, I could open up my mind and my heart and look for different ways to support them so they'd be successful. So Julie and I made it through the year. We had peaks and valleys. It wasn't until the following year that he returned to say, thank you. Thank you for believing in me. He said, you were mean, but you were firm. He's like, but I knew that you cared because you didn't give up. And that's the same approach that I take with in my leadership as I'm working with leaders, as I'm working with teachers or our staff. I personally haven't always received a warm reception like some of my students experienced. Some people have doubted my ability to lead a high school when I was a principal, and it was, oh, but you're so young. Others believed I couldn't effectively lead a department at a district office because I was female. And so there've always been preconceived ideas about what I could or couldn't do, which oftentimes came without people giving me an opportunity or even getting to know me before judgments were made. So as a leader, I've taken that and I've really tried to be intentional about finding ways to listen to people, to understand their stories, to collaborate, and to listen to the insights of others, because I believe that everyone has value that they can add and everyone's job is important. And so my first few years as a superintendent, I wanted to do that with students. So I started interviewing students just to understand, tell me more about your schooling experience and does this work? And again, it goes back to, I think oftentimes we talk a lot about what we want for students and we are well-intentioned and our hearts are in the right place. And sometimes we have to go straight to students and say, this is what we want. Is this what you need? And so that's really important. And so my journey as a teacher and as a new administrator was hard and it was very challenging. But I made it my mission to try to inspire and instill confidence in young minds and people that I was working with so that they would know that I believed in them and I knew that they would be successful. And that I was there to help them work hard and encourage them to believe in their own capacity. And so I have to tell you, I became inspired because I saw my students' confidence levels rise. It was joyful to see the excitement when they started grasping and understanding new concepts. It was also equally humbling to me to learn the challenges that my students were bringing with them every single day. And yet they were determined to come to school every single day. And so that was a testament in and of itself about adult influences in the lives of students. And that's something that I have always held on as a leader, as a superintendent, when I was the associate superintendent, as a director, in every single role, because we can check in with students, we can connect with them, we can find out about their life outside of school. We can smile and ask how they're doing. It's all free. It doesn't cost us anything. And so as I'm working with our teachers and our leaders, I've always come back to this whole idea of just the relationship, because I know that we're influential in the lives of our students. And so did I experience disappointments and failures along the way? Yes, I think that that's par for the course. Was I able to help show growth and progress for my students and working with staff? Absolutely. And so I share all of this with you because I want you to also know that we as educators know that life can be hard and it can be tough, and you might not have everything that you need, or you might be in a position where you may not have as much money or resources or supports that you need to thrive. And we are here. And it is my mission to do what we can to make these connections with any adults on campus, so that you have someone that you can turn to and say, hey, I need help. That is what we are here for. I see my job is working in deference to the schools, to our teachers, to our students, so that we can give you what you need so that you can thrive and you can be successful. And so all of this all stemmed from my first year of teaching, understanding more about my students and the circumstances that they had and what they were going through. So my mom, as I told you, used to say, be firm, be fair, be consistent. She also used to say, you have to focus on students are people first, students next. So get to know who they are. So that is really important for me. Holding each other accountable to the work that we say we're going to do is really important. And really just raising the bar, setting the expectations high, and then really believing that our staff can rise to the occasion, that our students can rise to the occasion. And so these are tenets that I take into consideration when I'm working with our principals. I work closely with them. I'm actually all of our principals evaluators. And we get to have rich conversations about what's happening on campus and how are we doing in connecting with students. And let's look at how students are performing and what do we need to do differently and better. And I know for me, despite the hurdles that I've had to overcome, or the challenges, or what people have said or thought, that it's not about, I can't let that deter me from focusing on why we are here. So it gets back to the why factor again. And I also recognize that we, as I said at the beginning, we are stronger when we come together and we work together to engage and to really connect with people in order to move us forward. And that has been really important for me. And the other thing is, never let anyone doubt your abilities. You have to be the first person that believes in the talents and the assets that you have. And it's important that you remember that no matter the challenge. And so it's been challenging, especially lately. And you know, with this pandemic, feeling like there's no perfect decision that's going to make 100% of people happy. And that's okay. Doing the best, really thinking it through, being really thoughtful about, okay, how do I want to approach this? How will this impact students in a positive and a meaningful way, and doing the very best we can. And of course, we have to just love other people, even when they may give us reasons not to. I didn't have identical experiences to my students. I could see myself in some of the things that they've experienced. But I think having the willingness to persevere and find people that you can connect with is really important for me. And so all of these things have influenced how I lead. And I'm very mindful also, because there were people, as I shared with you, that were like, when even I'm out and about, or at, at the store, if people say, what do you do? I work in education. The first comment is oftentimes, oh, are you a school secretary? Which is great. This is a great profession. I'm like, no. Oh, are you an elementary school teacher? So just the assumptions. I'm like, no, I'm an administrator. Oh, are you an elementary principal? No. Amazing positions. Yes, these are great positions. So I wasn't offended, but just the idea. And then when I say, oh, I'm the superintendent, really? You? Wow. I mean, these are some of the things that I've had to experience both internally within organizations as well as externally. And so all it does is help me. I take these experiences and try to use these as I'm working with our site so that we are all remaining vigilant about checking ourselves and our own preconceived ideas and notions about students based on who they are or what they look like, being really mindful that we have to be persistent in trying to make our district better for kids because you guys are in front of us today. Always looking for what things we can tweak or improve, listening to other people and understanding their stories. None of us have walked in the shoes of others. We don't understand the paths that they have taken. And so just listening. And of course, I try to lead by just being professional and compassionate and communicative and collaborating with other people. I remained in education because it was a hard decision for me after that first year. I decided not to go to medical school because of the connections that I had made, because of the influences that I felt that I was making or having on our students. I also saw that too often there were lower expectations for kids of color, kids living in poverty, kids with exceptional needs, and kids who are really just dependent on our system to thrive. And so I didn't like that. And I thought, you know, I'm going to stay in education and I'm going to make a difference. And I want to be a positive, influential person and advocate for kids who can't always advocate for themselves because they don't know how to navigate the system. And I love this community because it's diverse and it really reflects the community whom I believe I've been called to serve. And so all of you and all of our students bring these amazing assets with you every single day. And it's important for me and my team and all of our educators to consistently come back to why we got into this profession. So if there are any things that we are saying or doing, even unconsciously, that we can check ourselves and say, okay, how can we continue to push ourselves to be the very best every single day and really be a light for all of our children so that we can provide you with the best schooling experience ever. So in a leadership position, whether you're a person of color, if you're a woman of color, it is inevitable that you're going to experience challenges. People have biases and beliefs about what they visualize a leader is or should be, or their race, or their gender, or their ethnicity. And, you know, at times I was told I wasn't competent enough to take on a leadership role. Sometimes I was too young, as I shared earlier. We were just so articulate. There were just different things. Of course, I've experienced different forms of microaggression in life, not just at work, in life, playing sports. And so I don't regret it because I feel like I shared earlier, it has taught me some valuable leadership and life lessons. And really for you all, remain true to yourself. Remember what's at your core and your purpose. Why are you here? Don't ever let anyone else define what you can or cannot do. It's important. I get criticized, people give me feedback, and I really see that as opportunities for me to grow and to get better. It might sting at first, but I know that there may be truth to some of that, and especially if it's constructive. So really thinking about how can I continue to grow and to get better? But you also have to recognize the gifts and the talents and the strengths that you bring to the table that no one can take away unless you allow them to. So be bold, be confident, be compassionate and kind and loving and empathetic. Find things to just appreciate. Find things to laugh, connect with people, and really just try to build a positive rapport with other people because, like I said, we are only stronger together. And so I am an eternal optimist. I see glass half full. There's always going to be, whether the obstacles are designed so that we can overcome them, and there's always going to be a way to see how to do that. And then the last thing I'll say is really just love other people. really try to see their hearts, even when they may give you reasons not to, and even if they don't afford you the same in return, because really that is a universal language. And so the last slide I'm going to share, I'm not going to say a lot. I just put together some of my favorite quotes, things that help me remember about being humble, and being really thankful for what I have been blessed with. Situations are temporary. You're going to experience challenges, that we don't judge other people, and that, you know, really surround yourself with people that are going to lift you up and that are going to make you feel good about yourself and what you're doing and what you want to do in your aspirations. And that don't spend a lot of time worrying and stressing out if you can help it, because it's about how you choose to respond to a situation. And so I leave you with that. And I just wanted to, again, just say thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to come and share a little bit of my story with you today. I hope it was helpful. I hope it gave you a glimpse into who I am as a person first, and then as superintendent and how I lead. And I am very happy to entertain any questions if you have any, and I will actually stop sharing my screen. But thank you guys so much again for having me today.
Hello, so I just wanted to ask, what kind of expectations do you have for us as students right now, especially in such a strange time, not for just like specifically leadership, but kind of the student body as a whole? So what are some expectations that you may have?
I think that is a brilliant question. You know, this pandemic, I can tell you pre-pandemic and current, you know, during current times. So pre-pandemic, I think it's one of the expectations I have is that I'm going to move my camera, is that we are really creating environments that students can get excited about, that will engage in, that will ask questions, so that you will be curious and ask and really engage in the class, so that you aren't just sit and get, you are actually partners in the learning process. And so I have an expectation that students will have some agency around your learning, and that you feel comfortable and empowered to actually ask for what you need in order to be successful. I also have an expectation that as you have needs, whether it's academic needs or social needs or emotional needs, that if they are not being met, that you, whomever that trusted adult is on campus that you have a connection with or a relationship with, that you speak up for yourself. If you don't, who will, right? And so that's an expectation. During the pandemic, you know, I can't even imagine. I know what my life looks like. And I told you I have a 6-year-old daughter who's doing distance learning at home. And, you know, I think just showing up is amazing, because we don't know your circumstances. We don't know what you're experiencing. We don't know if you can show up, even if your camera is off. And I know we really want it. We'd love to see your beautiful faces, but there may be a reason behind why your cameras are off that you may not feel comfortable sharing or articulating. So showing up, I think, is half the battle, that you're there. Doing your best to stay engaged. I know it's hard. You know, we especially people who like to be and interact and socialize and hug, that's hard. We don't have an opportunity to do that. And so as much as possible, the expectation is not only that you show up, but that you try to engage, you find something that you can hold on to and really enjoy in each of your classes. But I also recognize, you know, it's a hard time for so many, and you might be having things happening with your family life that just make it hard for you to fully focus. So I think right now, the expectation, I said, we raised the bar. We want you to be there, right? We want you to speak up for yourself and feel empowered if you have needs. We want you to engage, because this is your education. This is your learning. All of your teachers have been to school, they have their degrees. This is your opportunity to really learn the material. I think the last thing I would say is, it's not always about the grade. And I realize I'm talking to a leadership class, because I was in leadership, and for me, it was all about that A. I just, give me the A, tell me what I need to do to get the A, and I will get there. It wasn't until college when I realized it's not about that, it is about learning. and thinking critically and being able to ascertain, is this actually real or is it fake? Is someone trying to trick me? Do I understand? What about this perspective? It wasn't until college that I actually, something clicked and I thought, it's not about the grade. If I am learning and really curious and I can go and do my own research because I'm that interested, I'm going to do fine. The grade will come. It's a byproduct of working really hard to just understand and learn the information. And so pre-COVID, I think definitely that is part of it. I even think right now, there's got to be something that really interests you. And if you're able to engage and focus, then really just do that. Focus on learning for learning's sake and not all about the grade.
Hi, Dr. Moore. I want to first thank you for your presentation. You really touched me as not only a student, but also as a person. And I just want to thank you personally. And my question to you was, how are you planning on implementing mental health, especially after COVID, to schools?
That is a great question. So we've heard a lot about mental health right now, and we have had a partnership with YMCA for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. And what I think has been prevalent is that even though we expanded and we have mental health services at all of our campuses, I just don't think it's enough. So recently what we've done is we've started reaching out to see if there are other providers that we can tap into, kind of a multi-pronged approach to get different agencies so that as the list grows of students who are in need, that we have people designed to provide direct hands-on support for them. And I tell you, everybody is doing that. So it makes it hard to find all the people that you need, all of the resources that you need. But we've already started reaching out to other agencies to put that in plan so that when students return, we know we have YMCA, they're still meeting with students virtually, but when students return, we want to make sure that there are people present that they can actually go to. Hopefully at that time we'll be able to interact face to face and actually get some support. So we're in the planning processes of that right now.
Hi, Dr. Moore. I'd also like to say thank you so much for your presentation. It was very touching, and I feel like you touched upon a lot of the concerns that we have in this class as well. But I was really captivated by how you were talking about your mom and how she had such an impactful just weight on your life. And I just wanted to ask, which of your mother's lessons would you say you take most in your daily life? Which do you apply most?
Wow, there's so many. So can I combine two of them? So her whole idea about never letting anyone define what I can do or put barriers on me, coupled with believing in myself, I think are the things that permeate throughout my life, no matter what circumstances I'm going through, because it also means that when I'm shaken or my confidence is shaken, I need to take a step back and say, listen, I can do this, right? It may not be easy. It may be really hard, but I also can't put limits on what I think I can accomplish, because if I say I can't, then I won't. So I would say those two coupled together have been the things that resonate. I mean, all of them do, but since you asked me to rank it, then I would say that those are probably the top two that I come back to pretty frequently in every day, actually, in my life, every week, every hour, every month. I think it's just part of, especially now when there's so many decisions that have to be made and so many things that we're juggling. What are some lessons that I learned as a mother that I've taken to my job? Was that accurate? Okay, so I like that question. You guys are good. Okay, so, I have to tell you, there's no manual for parenting. And if there were one, I would be the first one to purchase that book. So I think what I have been trying to understand as a mom, and really I think about it this way, I want the very best for my daughter. I want there to be limitless possibilities. I want her to dream big and go for whatever it is she wants to do. And so I am very encouraging. She wants to do ballet, tap, and dance, which she just finished. Sure. She wants to do musical theater. Of course. She is interested in art and wants to go and do the art at the mall, well, pre-COVID, where you could go and draw. Of course. She has done soccer and softball. And so it's that same idea that I want to cultivate and nurture people's dreams and ideas and suggestions. And so some of our leaders bring some things. Hey, have you thought about this? Maybe we could do it this way. Great, let's try it. Would you be willing to take the lead on that? And so learning about that whole aspect of, because she's only 6, but seeing that she has these big dreams, I never want to do anything. You see that light in her eyes about things. I don't want to be the one to extinguish that light. That's the same thing I want here. As students have these ideas about what they want to do, I never want any of us to say, well, why? Or, oh, no, you shouldn't. Or, oh, no, you wouldn't be good for that call. Why? How do we encourage and motivate and inspire our students to say, you know what, I can do that? The other thing I think is, once with my daughter, once we start something, we don't quit. If you commit yourself to it, whether it's a season or it's 5 weeks, whatever, you're going to do that and you're going to give it your very best. No kind of slacking off. And, sometimes when I'm tired today, I don't want to do this. That's my daughter, Rachel. And I'm like, you made a commitment. And so when I think of coming here to work, if we make a commitment about something we're going to provide to our students, to our staff, we need to see it through. If we say we're really going to focus on educational equity, we really need to figure out, okay, what is our game plan and how do we focus on this so that we can enhance schooling for all of our kids, particularly or especially our marginalized students. So once we start something, we don't quit. And then as we are engaged, we're going to keep working at it. The last thing I'll say is, my daughter is a great reader at age 6. She started reading when she was 4. And, my husband also was an administrator and a teacher. So she started reading earlier, but she doesn't always, she gets frustrated if we stop her, if she messes up or she misses a word. And so this whole idea of making mistakes is something else that I'm trying to teach her. Everyone makes mistakes. No one is perfect. And what's going to happen if you make a mistake? You fall down, you mess up, you get back up, you dust yourself off, you try again. And so that is the lesson, I think, even here, that we can also instill and help encourage with our students. No, you don't have to be perfect. You can strive for perfection, but really you should just strive to just get better and better and better and better. No one is asking for perfection. And if you make a mistake, so what? Learn from it and figure out, okay, well, what do I need to do so that I don't keep making the same mistake and so that I can keep growing and getting better. And so I would say those are the lessons as a mom, as if I put my mom hat on, that I'm trying to teach her and then bring it here. And then just be kind to people. I just want you to be a good human being that is kind and loving and that you just see people's hearts. Whether they're not nice to you or not, she's had some where they just weren't nice. And my husband said, well, we're just going to pray for them and it's okay. You still be nice no matter what. And I think here, let's do the same. We don't all have to agree. We have divergent perspectives. We all may approach something differently. And it's okay to articulate that, but just do it in a kind way. And really understand people are coming from it from a good place. So try to see their heart and help that in how you respond to people so people can actually hear you.
You talked about your student that you had on your first year of teaching. Are there any other student stories that particularly stick out to you or that have taught you another lesson?
Yeah, I had one, I was a high school principal and I had a student who mom was in and out of jail, on and off drugs. She had been taken from the house a lot. And so I kind of took the student under my wing and it was hard for me because there's a fine balance between you want to be there for your students and be supportive, but you also recognize you can't take on the world's problems because then it starts impacting you. But this is the student I just could not. I mean, and she was coming to school and she was working really hard, but you know, she didn't have access to water to bathe or to shower. She was hungry. And so we were able to really identify some resources to help her. I learned after I left and I came to South City, my former counselor at the school had allowed her, when she graduated, had allowed her to come and stay and live with her on weekends because her mom was in and out of her life. And just recently she reached out and said, I'm so sorry, but is there any way you can help me with my health insurance? And so I sent her some money to help her because she needed it. And so, you know, what that has taught me, again, and I shared this earlier, you just don't know people's circumstances. And it really emphasized to me that she, you know, we built up a level of trust where she was able to share what was happening in her life, very personal. And the fact that she felt comfortable enough to reach out was really affirming for me about connecting with people as people, right? So I could have been like, why are you late? You know, you can't wear shirts like that on campus. Where's your backpack? Like those could have been my initial responses to her. But understanding what she was going through, I could take a different approach. And so that has helped me just think about, you know, before, you know, you don't think if someone's late to a meeting or they didn't submit their school plans to us on time or board agenda on time, or we missed a deadline. Things happen. You don't know what's going on in their life. And so maybe we think our approach needs to be a little different in how we just check in. Even people first, business or profession second, right? So how are you doing? Are you okay? Are there needs that you have first? Because you might find that the reason they didn't do X, Y, and Z was because they are having situations happening in their home life. And maybe we can address those basic needs in order for them to to be back on track or to come or to show up on time. So I think that is one student story. And because I'm still connected with many of my students on Facebook, they'll email me and tell me about their lives and what they're doing. It's allowed me to at least feel like I was relational enough. I listened and they knew I cared. And so I'm just thankful, honestly, that I was able to establish that kind of a relationship that I also take into work now and help as I'm working with different people.
Hi, Dr. Moore. Seeing as you worked with so many kinds of people throughout your teaching career, what qualities of South San Francisco students, staff, and parents, and just citizens in general set us apart from other cities and districts? And what commonalities do you find between all of us?
Oh, I love that. So I would say, I think we do have a community that cares here. I just sit and observe how students interact, talk to each other, treat each other. You know, I told you early on, I started doing some interviews with students, and some of which was really geared toward whether or not they felt teachers cared about them, cared about their backgrounds, cared about their experiences, who they were. And all of the students that I talked with had very positive things to say about their community, their class, their classmates, their teachers. And I had one that said, you know, we know, at one point said, you know, we know what teachers say about us. We can all look around and we know, oh, this is what the student said, we're the dumb class. And that was here, student said that. But what she said was, you know, we at least feel like we can go and talk to our teacher if we need help, or if it wasn't the teacher, we can go talk to the counselor or there's someone. So I think that really sets us apart. I also know, you know, that we have a larger community here, not just within our district community, but our families that really believe in the school system, and believe and really support and get behind our teachers and our staff and our administrators. And I think that that's unique. I had some of that when I was a principal, but not to the extent that I see here in South San Francisco. And I think, you know, we have an empowered student body that they are learning how to advocate for themselves and for what they need, and are still, I think, learning the best ways and how to navigate it. But I'll tell you, you know, I ran some focus groups and I said to every group that if you want to reach out, I'm here, right? I shared with this group, my dissertation in college, in post-grad, was all about the voices of disenfranchised students. And the whole intent was, how are you experiencing school? Because no one experiences it the exact same way. And I said, so I value student perspectives. And, you know, I had students reach out and we had a 2-hour meeting and they were like, I can't even believe that you just spent 2 hours talking to us, because that is what it's about. And so my students advocated before, but it was like, at the time it was Mrs. Thomas. Mrs. Thomas or Miss Moore, can we stay out extra for lunch because we got an A on a test? Like, that was their level of advocacy. But we have a community, as you guys would probably say, as woke, and really want to make a difference for each other and for our community. And so I think really that sets our students and our district aside or apart from others where I've worked. I think the students, all of you bring assets and talents. I think that's some commonalities. Each of you bring your own gifts, your own perspectives, your values, what you love, what you like to do. I think that that's pretty common, but the way in which you interact with each other and with your teachers and advocate for yourselves, I think set you apart from others where I've worked. Honestly, you guys have inspired me. And so I see in the comments, thank you for those of you who said that it's been inspiring. You know, I told you I took this job and I didn't tell you. Let me tell you a quick story. I promise it'll be really quick. When my daughter was 1, and honestly, I wanted to be a superintendent many years later. Because most times superintendents are closer to retirement age. And I had just had a baby, and our superintendent had transitioned out. And so we had a nationwide search, and the search firm came to me and said, listen, your name keeps coming up as a possibility for being the next superintendent. Are you interested? And I said, oh, that's so nice. Eventually, not now, but thank you. Well, he came back 2 more times to say, you know, we're asking people, what are they looking for in the next superintendent? What characteristics are you looking for? And he said, and your name keeps coming up. Do you aspire to be a superintendent? And I said, eventually, but my daughter is barely 1 year old. I want to be a super mom. I can't be a superintendent, a superstar superintendent, and a superstar mom at the same time. I just don't know that I can juggle, because it's a big job. And he said, well, let's just do this. Just go through the process. That way it'll give you an idea of what questions they're asking for, and you start thinking, you know, you can think. So eventually when you want to be a superintendent, you think, okay, I know that there's certain things that I need to be prepared for so that I can start preparing for it as the associate superintendent. So I thought, yeah, that's great. I'll go through the process. 3 rounds later, the board called with the search firm and said, and it was a nationwide search, we want to offer you the position. And so I had to, and I was honest, and I said, you know, I am so touched and so honored and privileged that you want me to serve in this capacity, but I have a baby. There's no way. And, you know, at the time the board said, family first. We think that you can do it. You put your family first and we'll figure it out together. Completely different. And I've talked to other superintendents. That is not the typical response that you get from school boards, because they want the superintendency to be your life. And it is. I love this position, but I also love my family. And so really thinking about how that I got into this position. And I told you, I felt like I had been called. I am inspired. And I was seeing in the chat that we have the level of engagement and passion and care of our educators to our students and the way that the students respond. And so it's, again, I'm here to help you guys and to help our staff and so that all of you can thrive. So how have you evolved from your first year as a superintendent? That's a great question. I think when I first started as a superintendent, I knew how important my job was to work very closely with the school board. So all 5 are my bosses. You know, what job do you go to? You have 5 bosses. So I have 5 bosses. So I really focused on building the relationship with the school board. Well, just a couple of months after I was hired, the board members changed. One unfortunately passed away. One said I'm no longer going to run, and the other one moved on to the community college. So I was just like, oh my goodness, the board that I just spent time getting to know is gone. So then I had to learn it again, and then I had to learn it again. So I'm probably on my 5th iteration of a board, about to be 6th, because our board president just transitioned. And so that's been a constant in terms of my relationship with the board, because we are setting policy and practices for students. And it's imperative that we work really well together, and that we set a good model for what leadership is and how we communicate and talk to each other. I would also say, I think I've become, and I came from the curriculum and instruction side, but I feel like I have evolved in that my first year, I was just like, you guys handle it. I'm so focused on learning my job and really understanding how important it is with the board. And I wanted to still go out and talk to students. There are things that I wanted to do. And I had to realize you have wonderful staff, trust them to carry things out. I used to engage a lot with teachers. So I was still trying to pop into professional learning meetings with teachers, and I had to learn, Dr. Moore, that's not your job anymore. You can pop in, but you can't stay all of the time. You have other things that you need to do. And I thought, okay, I have to learn to do that. But I think now it, for me, is about systems. So I have become really crystal clear about, we have to build systems that are equitable for all of our kids so that they can thrive. So I consistently come back every meeting that I have with my cabinet. I do one-on-ones, I meet with directors, I meet with principals, and it's all about, how are we designing a system? How are we removing barriers? How are we opening up access? So you'll see some of these programs and practices that we're doing to open up access for our students. And that is a result of really understanding my role as a leader is also curriculum instruction, an instructional leader, to serve other people, but to also work on changing systems that will impact all of our kids. And I realize my impact could be greater that way. So great question.
Okay, I know you said that you felt that making mistakes was very important to learning. And what would you say is your biggest mistake that you learned from and that really inspired you?
That is a good question. The biggest mistake that inspired me, it just in general, right? Not specific to learning, or it needs to be about learning?
Just in general.
So I think what I have learned, well, I've made a lot of mistakes, right? I'm human. I think one of the mistakes I made early on was building a plan that I thought was brilliant. And, I tapped a few people to help look at the plan. And then when I took it to get approved by the board, I heard from some colleagues that they didn't feel included in the plan, and they were absolutely right. And so that was a mistake for me. You can't build a plan and that's going to impact other people and not think to reach out and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Does this make sense? What questions do you have? What's your voice, your opinions that you think we need to take? And I've always prided myself on, connecting with people and eliciting feedback. But, early on, and when I got to South City, and I was actually the associate soup and built this plan and realized, oops, I didn't do a good enough job. And so I had to publicly say, oops, I'm sorry. There was one other example where we were going through tough negotiations and my staff put some information out and it was not 100% accurate. And I had to publicly apologize and say, you know what? I made a very big mistake. But let me tell you what I'm going to do in the future so that this mistake doesn't happen again. And I really felt like people, again, were very forgiving. And I thought I was going to be ripped a new one. And people were very kind considering the mistake that we made. And so I think just recognizing that, be really intentional and thoughtful, but also remember we're working with people and we really value what people have. And so bring them in and let's have a conversation and include what they're saying and their feedback in whatever decisions we're going to make.
Thank you so much, Dr. Moore, for coming and speaking to our class. We are so grateful. I'm so happy that we were able to record it as well, so the rest of El Camino will be able to view it on our YouTube page. Is there any last remarks that you'd like to address before I stop the recording? And we could probably take like a fun group picture or something, just for the memories. Anything you'd like to leave us off with?
I want you guys to just keep learning, keep loving life, keep giving the very best of yourself, no matter the circumstances of the situations, and always believe that you can and you will do whatever it is that you have identified that you want to do. And then know that you don't have to do it alone, that there are a lot of people that are championing you and that are in your corner. And that I'll give you the same offer that I gave all of the focus groups. I am here. And of course, I always encourage you, if you have concerns, you talk to your teachers and your administrators, because they can probably help you. You may want to just check in and I will make myself available because I am here in deference to all of you. So thank you guys so much for the amazing questions and for your engagement and the comments in the chat. It really, you have no idea how much my heart is filled right now. Really, this was exactly what I needed, exactly at the right time. So thank you for inviting me and being so gracious.